Start recording. Hello, everyone. I'm Reiki Master Sharon, and this is a meeting of the minds with my friend April Luna Page. I'm so happy to have her here with me today. Today, we are going to be talking about some misconceptions about the twin flame journey and kind of these concepts of false twins and the narcissist empath dynamic. And, really getting back to the meaning of it all, which is unconditional love.
Yeah.
So I'd like to introduce you. This is April Luna Page. Go ahead and introduce yourself
Hello.
to the audience.
Hello, everybody. I am April Luna Page, and a little bit about me. I am in union with my twin flame. So I am so excited to be here with you, and I'm so excited to share my journey and to talk about this beautiful dynamic for everybody who's on this path.
Thank you so much. Yes, I mean, I too resonate with being a twin flame. I am not in physical union with my twin. And I think the dynamic between both of us is going to be very beneficial for both sides to see,
Absolutely.
because, you are actually living in union with your twin, so you can kind of share how you've got to that point. And then with me, I'm not in physical union with my twin in the physical reality right now, but I can still show where I'm feeling peace with that, because in
Right,
the beginning it's very hectic. It's very, you don't understand all the feelings that are coming up and why this person keeps coming back into your reality, and they
right,
seem so familiar but you don't quite understand it. And
right,
I think that's where it can get dangerous, because there are other dynamics that mirror that but can end in very bad ways.
right.
So um April, would you mind telling me a little bit of how you, well, first, I think we should talk maybe about your false twin experience, and then we can
Yeah.
go into your union.
Okay, no problem. So my false twin was basically a perfect illusion. So it was, I had the feelings, I had the butterflies, I had the zings, if you could say that. There was so many signs when I first met this person that were so beautiful and spiritual, and he seemed to know what I was thinking half the time. So I was like, this is cool. This has got to be, I didn't know about twin flames back then, but it got to be my soulmate. I've been looking for this person my entire life, and I finally found him. What I know now is that he love bombed me. And that's a very interesting dynamic, because your twin will kind of love bomb in a different way, but not like that. It's an unconditional love, I see your soul type way. This was, you're beautiful, look at all these things you can do. It was kind of an unhealthy dynamic from the beginning.
And a
So,
more like egotistical
oh
love
yes, yes.
bottom.
And
Yeah.
I didn't listen when people tell you that they have tendencies to be a narcissist. Like right up front, you should probably believe them, because I was like, I am the type of person that's like, no, you're a beautiful soul. You are a beautiful person. And I know you think that you are a narcissist, but believe me, you're not. Or narcissistic tendencies. He has those. And, he does have wonderful qualities. Otherwise, I would have never felt this pull to him, this love for him that was so unconditional no matter what he did to me, which meant cheating on me, lying to me, being abusive, talking down to me, basically destroying all my self-worth. But the thing is with that, I dug my heels in so much with every single red flag that I was like, no, I'm going to heal you. No, I'm going to heal you. So I thought it really was a part of my path to heal him. And a part of that path was learning you can't heal other people that aren't willing to be
Right.
healed. And actually, it was when I started getting more spiritual and more into, I had an awakening with God that really triggered him into some rage. And then at that point was when I realized I was in some deep trouble with this dude, because anybody that is that filled with rage when you mention God is definitely not going to be your divine partner. So
Hmm.
I don't want anybody to think that this is a typical situation, but if you are in that situation, there are always places you can go to get help. I had a situation where my life was in jeopardy, so I had to go to a domestic violence shelter, and anything that is on this path is preordained, basically, and you are going to be fine, even if you are with your narcissist, that are the one that has a narcissistic tendencies that are going to teach you things, because after I left, and even while I was with him, I was taught some massive lessons about myself and how to unconditionally love myself. And I think
Right,
that's where I had to find within this turmoil and the fires of this relationship, with my false twin, I found out really who I was. And I
right,
think that's a very important dynamic, because this path, even if you are with the person that seems like so much like your twin, there's a purpose there. There's a
right.
purpose for you to know yourself, to love yourself, and to say, no, no, this isn't right. The person that is going to love me is going to love me. They're not going to tell me all these horrible things. They're not going to put me down every single day. I'm not going to be crying 24/7, because I spent like 2 years almost crying 24/7. And it really shocked me into realizing that this was not the right person for me, and that I was going to have to stand up for myself. And once I started doing that, he knew it was basically over. So
Yeah,
I had, a lot of realizations who I was without this person, without the dynamic of being just, and this is a thing that I love being a mom, but I was only labeled as a stay-at-home mom. And that was a beautiful thing to have, but even in that instance, it just became my identity. I didn't know who I was outside of serving other people, which is a beautiful thing, but I forgot about myself. Like 100% forgot about myself. I didn't take care of myself. I started getting incredibly sick. So, but when I met my real twin, everything clicked. The whole dynamic was just complete opposite. The turmoil that was in my life kind of smoothed out over a while. It still pops back up, but there is peace. And
right,
this man, when I am upset, he will not get upset at me for being upset. He will sit and listen. He'll hold my hands and he will listen to me, and he will try and actually do his version of shadow work with me, and trying to figure out where in the past I've been hurt, that's reflecting right now, and where do we need to heal this. Very, very different dynamic than someone
right,
that is teaching me a lot about myself and how to love myself in a certain way. And this person's teaching me to be patient with myself, because I learned throughout my life, having a toxic partner came from having a toxic family dynamic. I knew love as toxicity. So, and
right.
unfortunately, I think a lot of people that are on our path have had that. I think that a lot of us think that love is toxicity. So we don't know when real love comes into our life, what it really looks like. And it's so different than anything that we've ever had before. I do think a lot of people try and push it away. They're like, I'm just used to the chaos. I'm used
Yeah,
to the ups and downs of this life, that this peace, this serenity that I feel. I think that is where a lot of the runner chaser dynamic comes in. But, I had kind of that with my real twin. And it was because I was mourning the loss of my previous life. And the universe, God responded and put me right back into that situation, because there was a situation with my ex that happened. And I had to go back and be with my kids in the same kind of dynamic. But it was a legal issue with him. I wasn't trying to go back to my ex. But the energy put me back there because I was yearning for my children so much. I got put right back there. My twin and I, we went through about a month separation when I said, this is it, this is enough. You're taking advantage of me, to the one that wanted me to go backwards. And then I said, I gotta go. We're gonna figure things out with the kids. You figure out your legal stuff. But I'm not doing this, because he kept on saying, what was it? You could move back in. You can move back in. You can have access to the kids anytime you want. I live on that side of the house. You can live on this side of the house. And at that point in time, he had done so much to me that I wasn't about to go. And because it was dangerous, it got dangerous. So I
Yeah.
wasn't about to do that. But I had to go. There's this that push and pull with the third, the either karmatic. We don't want to label people, but the thing that he was trying to pull me back into that dynamic to keep me away from this. And I think that the third party is normally in there. There's normally some type of third party that's trying to weasel some type of energy from the twins. So,
I
but
think what I see from that is that gives you an opportunity to really stand up for yourself.
yes.
And, I had issues with that as well, where, I was in a toxic relationship and a lot of it came from our childhood woundings. And I knew that the person that I was with probably wouldn't have, given up, but I came to a realization that just because someone won't give up doesn't mean that it's going to work out.
Right.
And sometimes you're not resonating on the same soul frequency. And that this is kind of to show you in contrast what the difference is. You
Mm-hmm.
see how your false twin reacted to you and how they treated you, and how your true twin is treating you and supporting you and loving you in that way. And
Yeah.
a lot of it has to do with the fact that we're not healed. I think, our people who held that space for us to have that resistance to actually stand up for ourselves and speak up for what we need and what we need to do, instead of keeping small and keeping to ourselves and trying to keep the peace and
Yeah.
trying not to make somebody else mad because you're afraid of how they're going to react. You know,
Mm-hmm.
all of, or even hurting someone. We can be afraid of hurting other people's feelings, but
Oh, absolutely.
at the same time, we have our own feelings that need to be honored. We have our
Mm-hmm.
own path that needs to be honored. We have, and that rejection doesn't mean that that person is necessarily a horrible person and isn't going to find somebody else. They're,
Right.
once we break through that dynamic, you're probably giving them more of an opportunity to be with someone who is more aligned with them as well.
Mm-hmm.
You
Right.
know?
It is. It is. I don't want to take anybody off their path, but I
Right.
mean, this is all supposed to happen. It seems so well. It fits so well in the path that I'm like, there has to be something that obviously is orchestrating everything. I'm a firm believer in the universe, God, the I am, but that's really not about my religion at all. But I do see the intricacies of this work, and I
Yeah.
don't think that it's something that happens by chance, because I've had a lot of people that are outside of this community that's like, oh no, it's just all coincidences. I'm like, I don't think it's all coincidences, because I would have to say there's like a million coincidences with my twin that are just mind-blowingly just I can't fathom them being coincidences. Like
Yeah,
that's
like
just not
you
possible.
can't deny it. Like it's like
Yeah, yeah. I'm like, that's just absolutely not possible. I'm a logical person. I try and be as logical as I can, but when these things happen in such a way that's orchestrated and laid out in front of you, that you see all these signs and things just matched, and you also have a deep soul recognition with your twin. With your false one, you do as well. With mine, I knew he was part of my path. Like, I would look at him and be like, "You're important. You are,"
mhm,
and I knew it. I knew he was important. And I can't say that he's not important because of everything I went through him. I wouldn't be me today if I hadn't gone through all that. I'd be
right.
a completely different person. And, I love who I am. So I have to honor that path with him, even though I have this. When he really irks me and goes, whew, it switches real quick, but then I have to switch it real quick back. I have to reflect on those feelings, which you've helped me with a lot. And, I appreciate that a lot, because I do have to look at it and be like, oh, I'm acting totally outside of myself right now. And this is where I get to reflect with this person what type of power he still has over me and what
Mhm.
kind of power I'm allowing him to have. Because I think that's more important, that I'm allowing this to happen and I'm
Mhm.
allowing it to take me off of what I'm supposed to be doing and my happiness right now.
Right.
He's going to use every single thing that he can to try and trigger me and to hurt me, honestly. So, because he's just that type of person, and I am aware of that. So, why don't I expect that from him? So, at some point, I have to expect that this person's going to do everything he can to try and hurt me, and just be prepared for that and be okay with that. Just keep my
And
boundaries with
I
someone
think
like that.
that, if I could just intercede for a second, but
Yeah,
I see people doing that as a coping mechanism. So I'm sure there's something that happened in his life to where he got this messed up idea of that's how he keeps himself safe
right.
and that's how he keeps some sort of control because like people who act this way are so afraid of losing control of
Yeah.
things around them. And you know, a lot of it is that they are so desperate for any kind of attention that they
Yeah.
don't care if it's negative or positive. And
Hmm.
once you realize that, you can become a little bit more neutral to it and
Hmm.
realize, like, okay, you're reaching for something. And
Right.
unfortunately, I can't give that to you. You have to give that to yourself.
Hmm.
And, you know, I've kind of had the same conversation with my ex where I'm like, things aren't going to change until you decide that you want to do your own work because at
Right.
the end of the day, we can't do work for anyone else but ourselves.
But
And
we
we can,
definitely try.
yeah. I mean, there are ways where we can uplift each other, we can encourage each other, we can
Hmm.
show people that there's a different way. People can look at us and see, okay, you know, this person is doing this and they're so much more happy than what are they doing different that I'm not doing?
Right.
And, you know, a lot of it is there is a flow to things where you have to be able to sit in the depths and actually feel what you're feeling and hold
Hmm.
space for that
Hmm.
before you can even rise up to this place of being at peace and being happy. And
Right.
once you realize like this never ending cycle of death and rebirth and
Hmm.
elevating and learning and growing, you start to not be so afraid of those times where you feel uncertainty about these tower moments that happen in your lives
Right.
because you realize that okay, if this is breaking down, it's breaking down for a reason. It's
Mhm.
serving a higher purpose for me, and in this moment it's best for me just to trust that God's going to take care of it you know?
Right. Right, absolutely, yeah. And you have to have all that. It takes a lot of faith because I had to give up everything. And this was I left my ex. We split in the middle of my awakening because it became incredibly clear that once I started hearing God, source, spirit, that this was not the person I was supposed to be with, and there was someone else that I needed to start, that was going to love me. I heard all about this person before I met him. So he
Right.
better live up to all these standards I heard. And if he didn't, I was going to be like, no, I heard a million different beautiful things about you. So, and I was fortunate enough that my husband, my twin, it lived up to and more and more. I can't, it's just like, it blows my mind. Every single time I think about our dynamic, how much there is that's just beautiful about this person. And he's a wonderful person. And he's a reflection of me. And he also has, I'm more of the light side. He's more of the shadow side. So there is a dynamic of that within our relationship that I do want to say your twin is going to be almost exactly like you, but they're going to have a different dynamic than you will. So,
Yeah.
but they're still beautiful in their own way. But there's a lot
Mhm.
of things that my other side has accepted things about himself that I have not accepted about myself. So I
Mhm.
think it's a beautiful thing to watch that with him and learn how to grow and accept things about myself that he is completely okay with. So I grew up in a way that was a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, and apparently he just got over everything a lot faster than I did. But he's a beautiful reflection. But I do want people who are on the path to know that your journey, their journey, everybody's journey is sacred. I don't want people to focus only on being in union, and that's the only way that you had a sacred path with your twin. Even if you aren't in union and you're separated from that person, that's still a very sacred path that you are on, and learning and understanding yourself. It
Right,
doesn't mean just because you didn't get married and you're not with that person, you're not still in an energy dynamic, because you're never separated from that individual ever.
right,
So they never go away. So because
right.
they're a part of you. So
Mhm.
everybody needs to be okay where they are on their path, and know that it is all divine. It's all within their path. And it shouldn't be just because I see it so much on the forums, and it kind of breaks my heart. How do I get in union? How do I get in union? How do I get in union? And I'm like, stop focusing on the union part. Start focusing on the energy that you can share while you're by yourself, and learning more about yourself and more about them through yourself as well. So,
Right,
and that's where the path can will take you. It's not about always being in union, and it drives me bonkers because I am in it, and I'm like, it's beautiful, but it's not everything that you guys are thinking that it is. That it's just it's a wonderful dynamic, but also is very hard because he triggers like a lot of stuff, and he doesn't mean to. Like he'll say something and it'll trigger something from like my past, like, and I will get indignant, and I have to reflect on my ego, and it'll be something super stupid and silly, and he will notice that my face just got really attitude, like, and he will do a trigger check on me because he just knows that my ego got triggered. He's like, let's reflect on that. And I'm like, I don't want to. I don't even want to talk about it because I know it was my ego.
yeah.
And he, so we're going to talk about it because I want to hear how you arrived at how this was your ego.
Right.
So we do talk about that, and it takes a lot of humbling because I am a runner. I will run from my feelings, and he is right on my heels. Like he's like, I want to talk about it. I want to talk about it now, and I'm like, I don't want to talk about it like ever. So we don't ever have to talk about this. He's like, no, we're talking about it. So it's one of those things that you have to be okay with that dynamic, and accepting and sitting down being like, okay, I guess we're gonna talk about how it's just a major a-hole in my head, and you picked up on it, and you're gonna call me out on it. And
Yeah, and I
completely
think
gonna call me
the
out on it.
accountability is really important. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you like with me and my twin, we kind of have the same dynamic except for he's more of the runner, he's more the avoidant, I'm more of the anxious, and
Mm-hmm.
I kind of do that with him too, where I'm like, I hold space for him to, kind of process things, but I know when he's triggered, and I think he probably hasn't experienced that before, where someone's actually like tried to understand where it came from instead of
Mm-hmm.
just snapping and calling him an asshole. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Yeah. And it's uncomfortable because you haven't received that type of care and love before. You've been told, well, I had, and I'm sure that most people who are the runners, that your feelings are wrong, that
Yeah,
whatever you're feeling is wrong, and you need to be quiet about them and go process them beside by yourself, no one else, because you own your feelings, which is, true. But when you have your twin with you, he is you. So this is a shared emotion, because mine can feel.
yeah,
Also, he can hear me, he can hear all of it. So he knows when these things are going on. I cannot cover up anything, I can't mask nothing. It's
exactly.
all laid bare in front of this person, whether or not he's going to love and accept me. And he does, because this is the dynamic that we have to unconditionally love ourselves, the good, the bad, the ugly, the things that, I was taught were, you know, just petty stuff from my mom, that things that he reflects. And I'm like, I have to get over petty stuff.
Right.
So, and because this union and being with him and him as an individual is such a beautiful dynamic that I want to keep on going, even though it's hard sometimes, you know. And that's the thing with everybody that's on this path, even if you're not in union, it's going to be hard. And if you
Right.
think it's not hard, you are in for a rude awakening, that this is one of the hardest things you will ever have to do, is be on this path and either be in separation or in union and then separate and then union again. Because I know that there's a lot that meet and then there's like a 15-year separation type period that they go through. I think I heard that somewhere. I don't know. It could be shorter, it could be longer. Some people never reunite, but they are always in union in spirit.
Right.
So that's the thing that people have to focus on, that physically you might not be in union, but you're going to be in union always in spirit. Your whole entire life you've been in union, you just didn't know it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think that's where other people get really frustrated with the twin flame dynamic because it's like it's hard to explain to somebody else that you have a soul that is always connected to you, that you can feel what they're feeling, that
Mhm.
you have so much empathy and love for this person that it doesn't matter really what they did or do on their journey, you're still going to love them.
Yeah.
And, there are other people who might want to be with you. There might be soulmates that want to be with you.
Right.
And it's hard to be with a soulmate and from my journey. I know there are some people who choose not to be with their twin, but for me, I can't even wrap my head around being in a romantic relationship with another person because I would feel so dishonest and so like
Right.
it would feel like cheating because
Yeah.
there's no way for me to disconnect from my twin.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's not fair to do to another person. You
Right.
know what I mean? But I
Yeah.
do know that some people, there's a element of free will and some people choose not to do the healing and it's very hard to come into union with somebody when you're not doing the work on yourself to understand what your triggers are and what your
Right.
wounding held for you, you know?
Right. And it's interesting what will come up, because there's some things that you'll be like, oh my gosh, I didn't know this was a childhood wound, but you obviously triggered something for me. And then we have to reflect on that. So the reflection is so important, but also being comfortable enough to be in that space, even by yourself, to be able to reflect on what triggers you and to go back there. And sometimes you'll feel like your twin is right next to you. You know, before I met my twin, I could feel this presence like right next to me the whole entire time, and that was because he knew that I was in trouble. Like, he
Yeah.
didn't know where I was or anything like that, but he knew, but his presence was there. So
Yeah.
there is a dynamic that twins are so interconnected that we do know, even before we physically meet,
Mhm.
when the other one is in trouble. And I felt that about things that he was going through too. I already knew the things that he was going through before we met. But I think it's such a beautiful thing that you have come to realize that it'll feel like cheating. Like, I
Yeah.
couldn't imagine, you know, something happened between my twin and I, if I would even fathom someone else. Like, it's even in thoughts, like the and I know this might seem controlling to people, but this is the way that this dynamic for us has developed. Like, I can't even have another thought. Like, if there's a man on TV that's like, some girls would be like, "Oh, he's really attractive." I'm like, "No, there's this person. He's going to be way more attractive to me than anybody ever could." The naked man comes on TV, and I've never been like this before. I don't want to look at him. I'm just like, "No." So it feels like micro cheating. So, and
Yeah.
that is our dynamic. There's definitely, and I'm not going to knock anybody who watches porn, but we don't do that. That's not something, because energetically we're not going to give that to anything or anybody else other than our union. So there's a
Right.
lot of people who are in union or spiritual who like to knock people for watching that stuff. Hey, that's part of their path. I don't like it. but that's not
Hmm.
something for me to judge on them. Maybe they'll figure out one day that this is just something that's keeping them tied down to something that's outside of themselves. But that is something that we don't engage in. I don't really, I have guys that are coworkers. I don't have deep guy friends because that's
Yeah.
an energy that's going to block my twin. And I've had a really bad experience with guy friends wanting more after a while, so I just don't want that in my life. I
Yeah.
don't want to have, to get to know someone and think that they're my friend, and then a year down the line they're like, I have feelings for you. I'm just no, no, because that seems to
Hmm.
always happen. I'm just not going to do it. So, and I
Yeah.
think that invites that into your life when you kind of open up that dynamic. Not that you can't be friends with guys. I'm sure that other people have beautiful relationships with guy friends. It's just something with my dynamic with my twin never seems to be okay when I let another male into my life to be like even a friend. So I have coworkers that are nice, but for me and my twin, it's more I can't have anybody that's getting to know me on that personal level. It'll get just completely get blocked for me.
Yeah. I feel like, there needs to be set boundaries, energetic boundaries with people in those dynamics when you're, a straight woman who's being friends with a straight male, it's
Hold on, I'm
I
sorry, my
have
son came
friends,
in. No,
huh?
baby, I'm honey. I'm sorry, my son came in.
Oh, it's okay.
I'm in the middle of a podcast, sweetie. All right, I'm sorry.
No, no worries. So, I think, there's different dynamics because, I have friends that are males that I wouldn't ever think of in that way. I see them more as like family and, you know,
Yeah,
I I have no issues with that, but there are people who see me as a potential mate, and since I'm not technically in physical union with my twin, they might look at me and think that I'm single, which in my heart and in my soul, I feel married. So
right,
it's like I still have to hold those boundaries with people to where I'm like, that's not what I'm looking for,
right.
But I don't
Mhm.
I don't ever push people away from being friends with me, but there are certain intimate conversations that can give people the wrong and the wrong idea.
Impression.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I get that.
So,
Yeah. No,
could
for
you
my dynamic, I'm just like, no, I just don't want to bother. So I
right.
have a million beautiful friends, and I have friends at work, but outside of that, you're not getting my personal phone number. I have friends on Facebook, guy friends that
Yeah.
are on Facebook that are wonderful friends on Facebook,
Hmm.
but as you said, it's certain boundaries are just like, no, 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 I can't even go down, because there are some on Facebook that will test those boundaries because they're on Facebook. So,
Yeah.
Facebook is one of those places that you can get to know someone, and then 2 seconds later they're hitting on you, and you're like, what the heck? I thought we were actually having a spiritual conversation. They say all the beautiful things that you think that a spiritualist would say, and then you get blindsided by, hey, so are you single? And I'm like, what does that matter? That matter. I was just talking to you about being enlightened and
Yeah.
the soul journey and everything. What does it matter if I'm single? But
Hmm.
that's one of those points where you'd be like, let's just talk about this. Okay, we don't
Yeah.
have to talk. I'm very married, by the
Yeah.
way. And then they go poof. But you are married. You are married to your twin,
Hmm.
before you were even born. You're one soul. So yeah, I
Right.
mean, it is correct how you're feeling, but people out there, they have to get to that inner union where they're not chasing, pulling and chasing on their internal side to feel like I am in union. Even though we're physically not, you are still in union. So,
Right.
and that's a beautiful thing to have, where you can have your space and that you
Hmm.
can have his, and it's a different dynamic, but you're still in union. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, and we still very much, support each other energetically too. I mean,
Mhm.
There are a lot of things that happen in my life that I'm not sure if I would have been able to like mentally handle it without the energetic support that I received from my twin. And, I think that a lot of us take on a lot of karmic debt in this incarnation for the
Mhm.
purpose of transmuting it and being able to, kind of bring in more light. And I think that's a big reason why we kind of have this gift of having our soul in another body for kind of more of an amplification of that energy.
Mhm.
And I think I would really like to have you share how you met your twin.
Oh goodness. Okay. How I met my twin. This is a very long kind of story. It's more, you have to really believe that these things can happen to people. Otherwise, it's just gonna kind of sound crazy. But my twin, I had seen in my dreams since I was very, very young. He was always staring at me, and he never really said much. He would say stuff every once in a while, but I'd always forget the conversation. But there was a type of energy that was there that was like a euphoria. And I would meet him and I'd be like, "You again." And then he'd just kind of disappear. He wouldn't say anything. He'd just look at me and smile and just like walk away. And I'm like, "Who the heck are you?" But I would wake up and the person next to me, I never had those feelings for that person. So it was like alarm bells went off, like, why am I having more intense feelings in my dreams than I am when I'm awake with my partner? I was like, uh-oh. So
Right.
that's a uh-oh moment because every single person I've been with, I have thought was my soulmate or twin flame, since I met them. And I was always mistaken because I'd wake up and it's not be this person and I'd be like, what do I do now? And be like, no, maybe it's just a dream. It's just a dream. It doesn't mean anything. People have dreams all the time. They get mad at their partner. It doesn't mean it really happened. So, then what happened was I got with my ex, and it got very dangerous for me at that time, and I started praying really, really, really hard that I needed some guidance, and at that point in time, I was agnostic. So I believed in God. I believed in the infinite. I just didn't believe that anyone had it correct. Like, I didn't believe anybody could understand what or who God was. So I wasn't going to put any type of label on God, and I wasn't going to talk to him because he didn't care about me. That's for sure. I'm a little tiny like ant to God. So why is this the omnipotent being going to concern himself with my goings on? But I was so wrong. I was so wrong because I had experiences where I was directly told, and I was shocked about this because this man had cheated on me a whole lot. And I guess that when someone cheats on you, like right in front of your face, and like all the time, God's like, that's it. No, 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 that I had promised God that I would stay with this man. And it had to take an intervention of this type to basically tell me I had a moment in my backyard. It was glorious. There was a presence of God. There was lights. That it was absolutely beautiful. That told me that this was not who I was supposed to be with, and that there was someone else that was for me. So I started having the inner union as you did with your twin, but I kept on hearing him how to tell me how to get out of this situation alive. So that was also when I got connected to my spirit guide, and I was told how to get out of that situation alive by running into a dangerous situation, and I had complete faith. But after that, I started believing more and more in this union, and I started having more dreams and more connection. I felt like someone was standing right next to me this entire time or behind me, basically guarding me with this energy. And I started having these pictures where this beautiful violet flame started showing up. It had never been in my pictures before, like ever. So I was super confused, and I learned that it was the frequency that was around me that was giving me signs that this was more than what I could ever have imagined. So I started taking more and more pictures, but then it came to I needed to find this person that was meant for me. And there was a lot of times in my dreams I'd always seen a man with a half mask on. And I didn't know that it was literally going to be tattooed on his face. And then I was told where to find him online. So I started looking for him, and then I found him. And as soon as I found him, he said, "Why do you seek me out?" It was one of those weird instances that he knew who I was as soon as I met him. Like, as soon as I was like, "Hey, what's up? I'm April. Nice to meet you." He was like, "Why did you seek me out?" And I was like, so it was a really, really weird thing, because I was like, I think I have pictures of me with your mask on my face, that would the light would shine, and it would like have this weird projection, and I would see this mask all the time, and he literally has it tattooed on his face.
Mhm.
So when I met him, like when I first met him, when our physical meeting, because I had met him for like a year, like in this other form. Like I knew everything about this person. And if this person that I was meeting was not going to match up to everything, and there was like a list of 100 things that he had to get correct. And one of the things is that we had some telepathic communication going on, because he told me where to find him. And when I came down to meet him, I had seen on his profile that he accidentally put that he was 5'1", and he is not 5'1". So I was, looking at it going, this man cannot be 5'1", but I'm going to accept him even if he is 5'1". And when I got down the stairs and I saw him, the first thought I had with my twin was, thank God he's not short. Not that I had just been with someone I couldn't wear high heels with. Not that short men are bad, but I was really looking for someone that was taller than me. So when I got to him, I looked in his eyes and I knew him. I was like, oh my gosh, I know you. I've seen you a million times in all of my
Mhm.
dreams. And he looked at me, he goes, did you really just thank God he's tall? And I was like, oh my God. He actually heard what I said. Like, that was the first thing he said. He looked at my eyes and he's like, did you really just thank God he's tall? I'm like, I did. Just I did, and I didn't know that you would know that. So I'm sorry if it wasn't like, oh, he's beautiful, the man of my dream. Thank God he's tall. So after that, I learned about the telepathic connection with my twin. But that's basically how I met my twin. I'd seen him in my dreams. I had a really bad traumatic situation where I got to know this dude before I actually met him. So, and it was through a lot of telepathy, a lot of, I think, astral projection on his part, so he could be with me during that time, and a lot of God's assistance with that, because every step of the way I was terrified. But even the lady that drove me to the domestic violence shelter, her name was April Siegel, which was my name at the time. So she was a police officer. She's like, you'll never believe this, but we have the same name. And I was like, I do believe it. And I was like, you're going to take me exactly where I'm supposed to go. So
Mhm.
every step of the way, there was some sign, some synchronicity that I was shown that this was going to be the path. And you can't just completely ignore those things. I had people telling me that I was insane, that this was, all they thought I was on drugs. Like half of my family thought I was on drugs because I was very adamant about what was going on, my spiritual awakening. And they told me that I was going crazy, that I was on drugs, all these different million different things of why this could not be happening to me. But it did happen. I have the person with me who can actually speak up and he can say his part about it. You cannot tell us that this did not happen. And there's a lot of things with us that coincide with our birthdays, our names, the people in our families, our life paths completely mimic each other. I studied hair, nails, makeup. So did he. We're both into voice acting. Both of us worked for Universal Studios. There's like everything. We even say things at the same time. It's really creepy. So in gestures, if I get a rash, it can show up on him, not all the time, but if it's like a really bad rash, he'll start itching. It's a very interesting dynamic to be in, and it's like being with yourself in a different body. It's just really weird. But that's basically how I met him. It took a lot for me to leave my ex. It did because,
Mhm.
we were married, but there's a lot of things that happened within that union that broke those vows before I could even say, I was done. They were already broken before we even got married. So, and then when we got married, they were broken then too. And there's a lot of things I didn't know about that since all this stuff has happened, I've I have God and I'm told a lot of things that I didn't know about with cheating and a lot of stuff that when I don't normally confront my ex, but when I look at the evidence, it's all true. So there was a lot of stuff I missed. I missed a
Yeah.
lot. So because I was always thinking, no, he's not doing anything nefarious out at a bar at 3 a.m. every night. Every night this man was out at a bar at 3 a.m. So, and I was left home with the children. So this was obviously not a dynamic that I was going to stay in forever, but that's how I met my ex. I knew him in dreams before I met him. I was put through some really horrific trauma that, it's taken me about 4 years to get through, but with my twins' help, I have been working through that amount of trauma. So it's been beautiful, but that's how I met my twin.
Awesome. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that with us. Yeah, like when I met my twin, it wasn't as intricate as yours was. Like I always knew that I had some kind of soulmate, but I didn't know about what a twin flame was. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like I wasn't
Right.
familiar with that. I mean, I am a Gemini, so I kind of resonate with the idea of twins a lot more because of that.
Mhm. Oh yeah, you
But
should.
and my twin is also a Gemini. So we're both Geminis. So there's that synchronicity. When I met him, I just had this deep knowing of why do you feel so familiar? Like,
Yeah, that's a
how do
feeling.
I know you? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I know you and I've never met you in this incarnation before, but I knew that
Right.
I knew him. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
and it drove me nuts. Like, and I didn't really know him, so I couldn't really say anything because we worked together and I was just like, I would just think about it. And I was married at the time. So I'm like, why does this person feel so familiar? Why can't I shake this? And so
Right.
then, like, when I found out that our birthdays were close together, I'm like, well, maybe it's just that, you know? Like,
Right, right. You do kind of like dissuade things. You're like, okay, that could be a coincidence. So
right.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
the amount of coincidences that
Yeah.
add up there. Like, there's no denying.
Yeah. There's no denying it at this point because I'm just like, there are instances where I feel his higher self talking to me and I know that he's, sending me support and energy in his own way, even
Yeah.
though like his physical self sometimes doesn't have the words to say it because he's
Right.
still working through his wounding and I'm still working through my wounding. And, there are things where we trigger each other and, I have to step back and really look at what part of my ego was triggered and why. And, I have so much compassion for our dynamic that it's much easier for me to work through that with him than with someone else. Because
Right.
anyone else, I would have just wrote off at this point. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah, you can't
and-
write off your twin.
yeah,
I mean, you can try, but
I
things are gonna
tried.
get. You
I
could probably
tried.
see like synchronicity everywhere when you try and like push away your twin. Like I know that when I wasn't in union for about a month, it was like everything that I saw was like about this dude, and I'm like, holy cow, I get it. I'm trying to get back to him. So
Right.
you probably have like a million different things that happen to you to confirm it on like even a daily basis that what you're going through. The twin flame telepathy, it's such a hard dynamic to explain to
Ignore.
people.
Yeah.
And that it's not just telepathy, you can feel them. You
Yep.
can feel them like they sometimes you can feel them like right next to you, but you can feel what they are feeling. You can feel
Yep.
their energy.
Hmm.
And it's not just words. You can hear the words, but there's feelings that come with the words, like they're your feelings.
Right.
So it's a interesting dynamic to be in because you think of telepathy as just, oh, you just hear this communication. You don't realize that it's actually this all-encompassing thing where you can feel what they are feeling, and if they really want to press upon an energy, then you will definitely feel it. I feel it mostly in my chakras, my heart chakra, my solar plexus. So, but I also feel my guide extremely in my solar plexus. So there's a differentiate feelings when it comes through, that if it's my guide or if it's my twin. So, and
Yeah.
that's discernment of where things hit you in your chakras, which when you
Yeah.
have communication with God, your guide, and your twin, it can come across. And there's also other entities that when you have this type of ability will try and sneak in,
Yeah.
and you have to block that energy, and you have to block that type of communication. But if it doesn't hit your heart, especially when you're talking to source, the heart and my top of my head right here, I can
Hmm.
feel that. Like it feels like there's so much energy
Yeah.
that the lights will start going. Like so much stuff will happen when I am talking to source, that there's absolutely no doubt in my mind who I'm talking to, because my lights will all go and my hair at one point would stand straight up.
Right.
So my kids too. So they had their own experiences as well with all this. So once they get to a certain age, I'm sure they'll probably talk about it more. But when you have these experiences, there are things that you can look for, because I think there's a lot of concern about everyone that's on this path. I've heard so much in certain religions about spirit husbands being evil, and that you're not supposed to talk to anything that is like that. But to me, that was my twin. And if I had
Hmm.
someone tell me that he was evil, I would have completely missed out on this dynamic. You have to know what is evil and what is not, and what's trying to mislead you away from your twin. If you have the telepathic abilities, there's going to be stuff that is going to try and come in and tell you things that are not true. So you have to know and have discernment of where this is going to hit you. It's a very difficult thing to have. I'm having it right now because it apparently is very important for
Right.
me to say this. Like right here, I can feel it right here and right here, that it's very, very important that this is something that people touch upon, because we can be misled if we have the telepathic abilities into very dangerous situations. So people have to be very careful, because I don't think people talk about our telepathic abilities. I think almost anybody can do it, but you have to be able to tap into it. There's a lot of things that will try and mislead you. So you can't be naive in thinking that everything that you talk to is good, because there's also a flip side to, if there's a good, then there's going to be a bad, and they're going to try and keep twins away from each other, and they're going to try and mislead you. They're going to try and have those tests, that doubt, and all that sort of stuff. So that's where my telepathy warning comes in, is that you have to know what you are talking to, and that it is your twin, and you'll get confirmations and stuff, and you can feel it. You can absolutely feel when you're talking to something that's divine, that has that energy. If you have something that's come up because it's aware that you have that energy, you will feel icky normally if something's trying to deception, it has its own energy. So I just think it's important people are very aware that there is a telepathic element, but you also have to be very, very careful when you're dealing with spirits and telepathy.
Yeah, you have to use your own discernment because,
Mm-hmm.
there will be voices that come into your mind that will speak down to you or will discourage
Yeah.
you or,
Mm-hmm.
these kinds of things. And I think that's where these physical things that have happened in our lives since we've both kind of dealt with domestic violence, that physical manifestation has really shown us how to hold our own boundaries and
Yeah.
really, there are things that need to be rebuked. You know
Yep.
what I mean?
Mhm.
Like
Absolutely.
you cannot hold this amount of light without being able to rebuke certain things
Mm-hmm.
because
No, that's so
it would
important.
destroy you, you know?
Yep.
I mean, and I think that is part of it is that being destroyed in that sense and look for me with like what I went through, it did feel like a destruction, a chaos that happened. And the purpose of it was to make me stronger in who I am,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Absolutely.
But
Absolutely. And look how far you've come. That's what
right.
I always tell people. Look how far you've come from
Right.
when you were in that toxic situation to now. Look how you've blossomed. Look how much better you are. Look how much you know about yourself. Look how much you love yourself. And what a
Right.
beautiful thing that is that grows from such toxicity. You know,
Right.
that is such a beautiful thing that you have overcome.
Yeah, I
So, and
agree.
you're helping people. You're
Yes.
helping people, you're writing books, you're helping your daughter write books. It's such a
Hmm.
beautiful thing to see, you shine so much and,
Oh,
knowing where you came from. So, it's a lot to overcome. It
oh,
is.
thank you.
So, you're welcome. Yeah, I think that it's so important that we tell people that have had such horrible past because we get put back there a lot, in our mental health and everything, but we forget sometimes to reflect on how far we've come and
Right.
how much of a different person we are and the
Hmm.
amazing, beautiful things that have developed in your life that
Right.
has just been super inspiring for me too. In your
Oh,
podcast, your books, everything, and you're trying to help people all the time. So it's such a beautiful thing what came out of
oh.
that.
Well,
So
thank you, April. I appreciate
oh,
you too, and I'm so proud of you for, actually stepping up and expressing your journey and expressing your story because I think this is so important for people to know. Because when I was in, going through counseling after the domestic violence, they told me that, 1 in 4 women will actually die trying to escape from a domestic violence situation. And I want to really emphasize how important and how serious these situations can be.
they
And I
are.
think that's what irks my spirit so much in being in these twin flame forums on Facebook because, like you said, there's a very dangerous dynamic that people can enter into that
Mm,
some people don't make their way out of.
yeah,
And I think it's very important for us to speak out on that. And, if anyone is watching and they resonate with anything that we're saying in this regard, I definitely encourage you to find a um, shelter or some kind of domestic violence organization in your area because
yeah,
there are resources out there for you to talk to people and to, have some protection and actually get yourself out of that dynamic, even if you feel unsupported in a family dynamic or something like that.
right.
So,
Yes, and it's important for those that are in the very dangerous dynamic. There's a few things that they need to remember is to be smart and be vigilant. Those people will watch you. I had my car tapped. I had my phone tapped. I had cameras all around the house, monitoring everything. So you have to really have escape routes. I had to have windows that were unlocked. So if he came after me, I could go through a window, or I had to have escape plans. So You have to be smart when you're dealing with these people. If you're going to go to a domestic violence shelter, everything has to fit into one bag and you hide it. You can go to a store and tell someone that you need help. You can go to a restaurant and tell someone that you need help. You do not have to rely on them to take you anywhere. Call Uber. If your funds are tied up, then you call 911 if you can't go anywhere and you get police there. You can do it on the DL. You can go to your Alexa, your Google, and tell them, please call 911 and tell them the address. There's so many different ways. I was so trapped that I didn't feel like I could get out alive. So he unfortunately messed up a whole bunch and I was able to flee, even though there's a lot of things that happen. He still did his thing. But I'm alive. I'm alive, and I think it's so important for people to be very, very vigilant because as soon as they know that you are about to leave, it gets extremely dangerous. Restraining order will not protect you. If you think a restraining order is going to protect you and that they're going to abide by that, they don't abide by any laws. If they are willing to cross the law of morality and virtue and try and take your life, they're not going to listen to a law of a man that said this piece of paper means you have to stay across the street from them. You can't get away from them. They are not going to listen to that. That doesn't matter to them. You have to stay protected in a domestic violence shelter or with family or friends where they cannot get to you. So it is very important to know that your phones might be monitored. If they are, then it's compromised and you have to go and find someone that's going to help you because as soon as they try and figure that stuff out, it starts to get very, very dangerous and it can get dangerous for your kids. So you have to take your kids too. So that's one of those things. Everything can fit into a car and leave. Your stuff can be replaced. You cannot, your children cannot. So you have to get to safety until they see someone for mental health or you can protect yourself in a manner that, this person's not going to come after you or they've calmed down and they have realized the writings on the wall and doing something dangerous is not going to help anything. So
Yeah.
it's very dangerous situation and people have to protect themselves and I do not want them to get in the same situation where I did, where I thought it was my job to heal this person and that I was failing at it and
Yeah.
that it was going to be my lot in life to just die this way, either by sickness or if he was going to do it, that was going to be the sacrifice that I was going to make. And it literally took an intervention to tell me this is not the way you go. You need to get out of here.
Right.
So I don't want that to happen to other people. I really, really don't. I don't want them to push it until they have that type of thing because sometimes people are too quick and things can happen. I'm not saying that it will always happen the way that mine did. I don't know why it happened the way that it did, but it did. And maybe it's so I can tell people that this is a dynamic that will keep you trapped and it can potentially cost you your life. So be very, very, very careful when you are leaving that you're not being tracked or traced. And when you go and meet with them, you have to be at a police station. If you're doing a drop off with your kids, don't go to uh, a gas station or Chili's or anything like that to do a drop off. It has to be at a police station in case something does go wrong. So they're
Right.
going to be right there. So
Hmm.
yeah, but
Thank you.
it gets better. I'm
Yes.
just, it gets better. I don't want to focus directly on that, but it once you leave, it is such a beautiful life that you can develop. You can get to know yourself a lot more. You can do what you want, I mean, you're no longer trapped in a cage of someone else's, demands and expectations. And
Right.
now you can be you and you don't have to hear those negative things because I heard them consistently. It was not like a day that went by or a moment that went by that I wasn't told something completely horrible, either by him or people's in my family. And unfortunately, my kids still have to deal with it. I feel
Yeah.
bad for them because they have to deal with the toxic side and I have to help them through it. But I do think that since a lot of us get into these dynamics thinking that our our false twin is the real thing, we're gonna dig our heels in. I'm so stubborn that I would have been like, take me, I'm fine. You know, I would have. Like, I will sacrifice myself. Maybe then he'll be sad. And then God was like, he will not. And I was like, oh,
Yep, yep,
yep.
your sacrifice ain't gonna save him.
And he's not going to feel bad if something happens to me. I was like, maybe then he'll feel bad about what he's done if something does happen to me. No.
No,
No.
no, the only way that we can really hold space for those dynamics is to really show up for ourselves and
Mm-hmm.
to be more strong in our own resolve and
Right.
to acknowledge how important our life force energy is and realize that we don't need to live in a state of being talked down to all the time, of being abused or being held back or having our finances in a way to where we're always relying on them. They always have
Mhm.
control. They're always talking bad about us if we're trying to hang out with someone else,
Yep.
separating us from our, support system. Like all of those things are huge, major red flags. And I want to thank you so much, April, for sharing
You're
everything
welcome.
that you have about your journey. And I really hope that this recording will help someone else that may have been in this situation. And, I understand that this dynamic is not for everyone. Not everyone is going to agree with this. There's probably going to be people who will have some other opinions of it. And I just want to tell you, you're more than welcome to have those opinions. And,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. People
I
can
mean,
have whatever opinions they want. I'll listen
yep,
to them, but at the end of the day, my experience dictates my opinions and my truth. But
right,
you can have your opinions all you want on my truth, and that's
yeah,
okay. You
right,
know, I
exactly.
still my truth. It's still
So,
yours too.
yes,
Mhm,
exactly. So, if anyone would like to connect with April Luna Page, you can find her on Facebook.
mhm,
She also has a YouTube channel that she's been kind of cultivating if you want to check it out and hear more about her story. It's Seek the Seekers.
mhm.
And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments and we'll do our best to kind of answer those questions for you. And
Absolutely.
if you like this content, please like, share, and subscribe, and we'd love to see you next time. So
Awesome.
thank you again.
Thank
And
you so much.
yes, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay,
Bye, everybody.
bye-bye.